Hello, my name is Jordan Henderson, and I will be talking about the deaf community. In this presentation, I will be discussing the background and history of the deaf community, what makes the deaf community a subculture, the deaf community's communication styles, and lastly, the conclusion and wrap-up of this presentation. Deaf history focuses on centuries-long turmoil to overcome discrimination by the hearing world and to provide better opportunities for the deaf community at large. I couldn't cover all the important moments in history for the deaf community, but I will talk about some of the most important. In the 1500s, Jeronimo Cardona was the first physician to recognize the ability of deaf individuals to reason. In 1550, Pedro Ponce de Leon is credited as the first teacher of the deaf history. In 1760, French sign, also known as methodical sign, was established. In 1778, Samuel Heinecke promoted oralism, a method of teaching deaf children spoken and written language through speech and lip reading exclusively without use of sign language. In 1817, the American School for the Deaf was founded in Hartford, Connecticut. This was the first school for children with special needs anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. In 1857, the Columbia Institution for the Instruction of the Deaf and Dumb and the Blind, known today as Gallaudet University, opened. In 1864, President Lincoln signed off on an act that allowed for the establishment of a School of the Deaf, which remains the world's only liberal arts university for deaf and hard of hearing students, known as Gallaudet University. In 1960, William Stokoe, a scholar and hearing professor at Gallaudet University, published a dissertation that proved ASL is a genuine language with a unique syntax and grammar. ASL was then recognized as a national language. In 1961, the first cochlear implant was developed. In the 1970s, the onset of closed captioning was created, and in 1972, Gallaudet University created a closed captioning system that is widely used today. And lastly, in 1995, cochlear implants were approved for people 18 and older. Culture is thought of as a characteristic of an entire society, but culture can also exist in smaller, more narrowly defined units. A subculture consists of the values, behaviors, and physical artifacts of a group that distinguish it from the larger culture. We don't usually think of people with sensory deficits as constituting a subculture, but many people who are deaf identify themselves as members of a subculture and take pride in its unique values and norms. Being involved in the deaf community and culturally identifying as deaf has been shown to significantly contribute to positive self-esteem in deaf individuals. The community can provide support and easy social interaction. Unlike some other cultures, a deaf person may join the community later in life rather than needing to be born into it. When you think of communication within the deaf community, you most likely think of sign language or lip reading, but there are many more methods since not all deaf individuals choose to communicate in the same way. Just a few of the different types of communication that make the deaf community a unique subculture with regard to their cultural and communication patterns include ASL, signed English, cute speech, oral method, Rochester method, lip reading, and linguistic space. American Sign Language has a unique grammatical structure and utilizes facial expression and body language as grammatical markers. Something very interesting about sign language is that there is no single sign language used around the world. Like spoken language, sign languages developed naturally through different groups of people interacting with each other, so there are many varieties. There are somewhere between 138 and 300 different types of sign language used around the globe today. Signed English is another form of communication used in the deaf community. There are various forms of signed English. The common name for these methods is manually coded English, MCE. This refers to any manual form of communication which uses English-based signs and English grammar. The Rochester method is a method which is based on standard English. Each word in an English sentence is fingerspelled. This can be very cumbersome, thus it is rarely used for everyday communication. For cued speech, this method utilizes a series of hand shapes placed around the face and mouth in order to show the phonetics of a word. Since many words look the same on the mouth, this system allows a deaf individual to more easily lip read words because of the incorporated hand shapes. The oral method is a method in which the deaf individual uses lip reading and voicing. The success of this method depends on many factors. Lip reading is the ability to read lip patterns. Deaf children naturally pick up lip reading faster than adults, but many speech sounds look the same. For example, pat and bat. So it is difficult to rely on lip reading on its own, and it's usually used alongside the other communication methods previously discussed. Finally, probably one of the more unknown methods of communication is linguistic space. For For users of ASL, space is incredibly significant. Because of the visual and spatial nature of ASL, the space surrounding a signer's body is important not only for the signer to communicate, but also for others involved in the conversation to participate. Environments created during the conversations in ASL reflect the cultural and linguistic perception of the American deaf community. By taking a critical perspective on the production of space, it will be shown that those who use ASL through the medium of bodily performance create linguistic and communication spaces that are dynamic and visual. Being deaf is about more than just whether or not a person can hear. It's about being part of a community with its own history, values, and culture. Deaf culture was more expansive and intricate than I ever imagined, and I hope that if you watch this presentation, you are able to learn and take something away about this amazing and complex subculture.